in my previous episode of My Friend the Rainbow Circle, um, the Jesus episode, the world famous, widely beloved Jesus episode, I mentioned this woodsy area had these weird artifacts left over from a house. These twisty metal pipes. I'm assuming, they had something to do with a house that used to be here a long time ago. And that is a really compelling, fascinating mystery in and of itself. When I found these with my son, we were just exploring the neighborhood, and we walked through this woodsy area, and we found these. They're really compelling because I have no idea where they really came from. I have no real explanation for them. And I think that's one of the problems with what I've complained about many times. The abundance of the response you have in creative writing workshops. I don't understand why such and such happens. I don't understand where these pipes come from. That's an ultimately irrelevant sort of response. My son seeing these, he was pretty amazed at the weirdness of them. And just seeing him through his eyes. I used to see this kind of thing walking out in the woods with my dad years and years and years. So I'm really numb to the wonder of weird house artifacts like this. But my son seeing them, seeing one and just being really compelled by the mystery of them, that's really fascinating to see it, see them in a new way. So the response, a story about pipes like this, the response might be, I don't understand where they come from. But that's the point. That's what makes them magical. That makes these weird sort of surreal things, real but surreal things, really magical, is not knowing where they come from, the ambiguity of them. That seems to contradict, another complaint I have about workshop fixation, which is the iceberg, the oversimplification of the iceberg in order to understand, the complexities of subtext, the real remedial sort of address of subtext in the form of the iceberg. There is a discussion of iceberg, and that's a form of ambiguity. But I think what makes the iceberg really appealing, and a lot of the discussion of it, is just how easy it is to identify the subtext. So, if you look at a story like Hills Like White Elephants, which is, personally, I think a really horrendous story, it's real easy to spot the subtext. So a discussion of iceberg tends to be rooted in the notion that the iceberg is the tip of something that you can identify, and it's a real overly simplified sort of concept of ambiguity that makes it real easy to teach. Whereas, and I think that's one of the problems of the the roots of the proliferation, not to make a pun, out in the woods, one of the roots of the proliferation of, this really limited perspective on how to really interpret the iceberg. There's a bunch of pretty yellow flowers over here too. Pretty yellow flowers. There's my shadow. That's bad filmmaking. Pretty yellow flowers. But yeah, that's that very limited perspective on just the value of ambiguity and framing it more purely in terms of an iceberg, where the under the surface part of the iceberg is really easy to spot. Just eliminates one of the most powerful things that you can do in a story. Mystery, unexplainable mystery, not actually knowing what's going on under the surface. Hemingway said, it's irresponsible not to know what's going on under the surface. And that is what I like to call bullcrap. Some of the great images in a literary piece have no explanation, and that's totally fine. If you explained, you said, there used to be a house here, and this is this particular type of pipe, you're eliminating the power of the ambiguity. You're eliminating the power of the mystery. In a mystery story, you explain that at the end because that is the end of the story. That reduces the stimulation because the story is over. But you can just leave it unexplained, and that's totally valid. Anyway, these are pretty flowers. I'll end it on the pretty flowers. See you in the next episode.